do it.
And we are live at the Max Stern Athletic Center at Yeshiva University for the MYHSAL JV Basketball Championship game. The top seeds in each conference will face off against each other today. The Flatbush Falcons and the Ramaz Rams. I'm Josh Wasatsky alongside Yosef Silver. Yosef, take it away.
Hey, how's it going, Josh? Pleasure to be with you in the booth. So I guess just to start out for these two teams, the way they've done this season. So for Ramaz, 5-5 last year. They had multiple freshman starters, and they were led by Coach Ellie Grunberg, who's now at JEC. Preseason, they lost to SAR. They lost to SAR in the finals of the SAR preseason tournament. Ramaz won their first 3 games of the Yeshiva League season. Then they lost to Frisch on the road. They lost to Hillel at home. They tried to make some adjustments in between those, but they weren't properly executed in the Hillel game. After that game, though, they went to the film. Coach Poppers kind of broke it down to these guys. Coach Kiva Poppers in his first season at Ramaz, he kind of broke it down. Ever since then, they've stormed to an incredible 8-2 record. They kind of, maybe got lucky or whatever, played well at the end of the season and earned the #1 seed in their division. They opened the playoffs versus Mag and David and beat them by 24. The next game was against DRS. They beat DRS double overtime. It was 45-45 after regulation, and DRS went down and came back.
That was the game of the century, double overtime against DRS, and then Ramaz was down by 1. Noah Hiltzik chucked up about a half-court shot and a very controversial foul called. And Noah Hiltzik, he missed the first foul shot by a lot, but then hit the second two to come out with the win. Very controversial ending in a crazy game.
Yeah, a little bit controversial. The entire game was, I don't like to speak on Avery's friends, the officials, but you could say questionable officiating definitely went for both teams either way. And we'll get into Flatbush, but first we're going to send it down to the PA announcer, who's going to have team intros and starting lineups.
From both schools. Please cheer as loudly as you want, but please do not jump up and down. Do not stomp on those stairs. YU is very, very generous to us in allowing us to use this place 2 weeks in a row now. If you stomp on the stands and you break anything, your school will be charged. The stands will not be able to be used for sound check, and we will never be allowed in YU again. So please cheer, like I said, as loudly as you want. Do not stop on the stands. Thank you. do it. We now ask everyone to please rise in silence as we play our national anthem.
And we are back. And so, Yosef, what were you saying about Flatbush?
Yeah, so getting into Flatbush this season. So Flatbush was also in the SAR tournament to begin. They had to play Hillel, TABC, and Frisch in their group, which was a very tough group. They lost to Hillel in the first game, but beat TABC and Frisch in their next two. But unfortunately, especially the way with their play style, they gave up a lot of points. Flatbush typically likes to play a high pace, which allows for more scoring. And they ultimately lost the tiebreaker because of the amount of points that they gave up. So they didn't even make it to the playoffs of that tournament. In the regular season, they lost their second game to Mag and David at home, which dropped them to 1-1. But they've won every single game since then. They finished the season 9-1, including a big win at Mag and David. They lost to Hebrew Academy of Montreal in the finals of the Montreal tournament. But the other games in that tournament, they played extremely well. Obviously, they were in the championships against Montreal, so that shows you how good they are. The rest of their games in that tournament, they did pretty well. In the Visa Shiva League playoffs, they played Hillel in round one. And in their second game, they hosted Frisch. They fell behind in 6 minutes to go, but mounted a comeback and won the game.
And Emmanuel Kushner, as easy as you can get, wins the tip to start the game. He is the 6'4" star center for the Rams.
Yeah, he obviously gives Ramaz a huge size advantage. Look for them to work the ball through him, maybe on the inside offensively, and especially defensively. He could be a real problem for Flatbush.
He is being guarded by Kamaji. Here's Ed Ash, the point guard for this Rams team. Kicks it out to Segura. Ralph Segura, the younger brother of star varsity player Bobby Segura. A lot of siblings on these teams. big basketball families on both sides. Kushner posting up, and that's a travel.
That's something you got to be careful for as a big. Obviously, you're going to want to bang your way towards the basket, but something that we see very often is, you kind of get lost in your feet and ultimately travel first. They're going to have to do a better job of setting him up inside, especially with no shot clock. You have all the opportunities.
Kamaji lays it in. Flatbush gets the scoring started.
Great job by Flatbush identifying Kushner. Kushner was at the top of the key, which allowed them to drive in with the lane a little bit more open.
And like you said, with Flatbush's aggressive defense in a press, Hiltic wide open for three, and out of bounds.
Our famous sixth defender here at the Max Stern Athletic Center striking early. But that was what you want to see if you're Ramaz. They broke the press, found the guy wide open in the corner, and if I'm Coach Poppers, I'm telling him to keep shooting because he's one of those guys that can really get hot from the corner.
And Ramaz is a hot three-point shooting team. They're very good shooters. Hiltic is one of those as well. And now Flatbush has the ball. Moadeb, their whole offense runs through Eli Moadeb, and that's a foul on the ground called on Jared Miller. Both these teams have an all-sophomore starting lineup. Flatbush, it's Moadeb, Kamaji, Suleiman, Levy, and Kasib. And we'll get Ramaz's throughout the game. Moadeb pulls up, and Kushner with the board. Flatbush looks like they're in a man. It's Eli Moadeb on Ralph Segura. Ramaz rocking their beautiful all-black Yeshivat Ramaz jerseys. I think it's the second nicest in the league behind Flatbush's all-black Yeshivat Flatbush jerseys. Kushner misses the wide-open layup. Miller, that won't go well. Stays with Ramaz, and Ash airballs a three. What a sloppy possession.
Yeah, but great job by Ramaz making sure to grab the offensive rebounds. It's one thing to be a little bit sloppy on the way to the shot, but it's another thing to do the hard work and grab the rebound and give yourself another opportunity.
Nice take to the basket by Charlie Levy. Going up strong. And Ramaz breaks the press with much more ease this time. Miller can't hit the layup. Second try will go, and finally Ramaz gets points on the board.
Look for them to maybe spark the offense a little bit. They've struggled here early, but if they can start to get going on offense, they've been doing a decent job defensively so far, so let's see how they can progress on that side of the court.
Kamaji driving the lane, and one, David Kamaji.
And I don't like that from Kushner. He was a little bit late getting over, but then he didn't have to jump to try to block. At 6'4", he's an extremely tall kid in his own right. I would like him to stay home, just try to rely on his hands. Now he jumps, he commits the foul, puts Kamaji at the line.
And so we did not mention the starting five for Ramaz. It is Jared Miller, Ralph Segura, Emmanuel Kushner, Ed Ash, and Noah Hiltzik. Here is Ed Ash bringing the ball up. Looking for somewhere to go. Risky pass, but Kushner catches it. Again, no shot clock at the JV level, so these offenses can take however long they want. I'm sure we'll discuss the shot clock later in the game on how we think it's effective varsity, and if we think it'll ever come to JV. Miller, again, Ramaz just can't finish. Nice ball movement by Suleiman. Levy for three. Too strong, going down to Ramaz.
Yeah, and I don't like what we've seen from Ramaz so far offensively. They run somewhat of a motion offense, which, definitely relies on off-ball screens and back cuts and things like that. I wonder if we get a couple more possessions, maybe Coach Poppers calls a timeout, kind of talks it over with his guys. We see a little bit of that going on, but they just haven't been taking smart shots. It seems that they haven't really been making that extra pass that the motion offense is known for.
And Kushner just can't catch the ball. Moadeb thought about the deep three. Now shoots this three. Way off the mark. You see some of the nerves in a championship game. I mean, both these teams just can't finish.
Yeah, for sure. And, especially, I would say with Kushner for Ramaz, but I'm not worried about it for either team because I'm assuming, we see it very often, especially, in the high school tournaments, even a little bit, when I'm calling the max games. In the high pressure situations, it can sometimes, different guys react differently. But, look for these guys to settle in. Coach Popper's leaving his guy out there. Look for him to, kind of calm down, especially, with a loud crowd from Flatbush. Look for him to settle into the game, and then once he settles in, he'll start to show us what he can do.
Victor Dava and Louis Franco checks into the game for Flatbush, and Charlie Kaplan, who had a really good game against DRS in the semis, checks in for the Rams. And another sub. Flatbush, they run a pretty deep rotation. It's not going to be your typical 7-man championship rotation. They get a lot of guys in, and that is Richard Carey checking in. So here's Ash with the ball, being guarded by Richard Carey. Great defense so far for Flatbush. Nothing yet here for the Rams. Hiltzik for three. Puts it in. Noah Hiltzik from deep.
And that was a great job by Hiltzik, creating a little space, identifying the space that was there, and in his ability, understanding that he can hit that shot, and then obviously drilling it.
Franco with a step-back jumper.
That's a great response from Flatbush. You can take everything I just said and put it right back there.
Noah Hiltzik, 16 points against DRS in the semis, and he gets started tonight. Jared Miller draws the foul, driving the lane. And so foul shooting for Ramaz was something they completely struggled with in the semis. It was abysmal. They missed 17 foul shots combined in the second half and overtime. And that's a heavy reason why they didn't come away with that game earlier. So let's see how they can shoot their free throws today, and a rough start, that won't fall.
Yeah, going back to that game of free throws, DRS was 14 of 16, Ramaz was 14 of 32. So obviously, you're looking for, at least 60-70%. To be under 50 is really not good. I'm sure Coach Popper's really worked on that in practice this week, and one of two, you'll definitely take it in your Ramaz based on the circumstances.
So Flatbush leads 8-6, and here's Franco for three. That goes! Louis Franco from downtown.
And that's now 5 in a row from Franco. He's done a great job of, when Ramaz isn't right in his face, identifying that space and making sure to take the shot.
Hiltzik nails the three from the corner. Nobody can miss.
Every time I talk about Franco, Hiltzik gets a shot. Every time I talk about Hiltzik, Franco gets a shot. Because now we're going to get a timeout from Coach Poppers. I believe he wants to talk over the defense.
What a spark. Louis Franco checking in off the bench. And just already, 7 points in a row?
I believe so.
Talk about sparks, and wow, that's impressive. And both these teams just coming out. We saw the first 3 minutes of the game. Nobody can buy a shot, and then as the game moves on, now every shot starts to fall.
Yeah, it's a little bit in the beginning. We kind of saw things get a little bit rattled offensively. Now as things have, kind of settled in on the offensive side, I've seen both of these teams kind of a little, struggle to put it together now on the defensive end. They're going to have to work with their coaches. I'm assuming that was, the timeout, to try to work with their teams to get the defensive side in check. And then, hopefully now, both teams are set in what they want to do on both ends of the floor.
So after the timeout, Mohadev, the floater, not sure if that was tipped, but that was well airballed short. And here's Hiltzik, thought about popping the three from way out. Good decision not to. And Kaplan being pressed up by Suleiman. Gets it away to Miller. Jared Miller taking it up strong. And a wild look going down to Flatbush. Just not the shot you want there, Yosef.
Yeah, that's not the greatest shot. He was able to, push off, get a little bit of space there. And, good job by Flatbush kind of crashing the defensive glass. You saw, I believe, 3 guys it was on Kushner trying to make sure he couldn't grab the board or end up bouncing off him. And that's going to be a key to this game. Can they contain Kushner on the offensive glass?
Franco gets the bounce. Louis Franco. What a hot start for him.
And he's just been excellent. And, he's already in double-digit points. Flatbush is 13. I think he has 10 of them.
I don't think anybody had it. And Edward Ash, step back court, was not called. And a travel that's missed. What is going on? Hiltzik misses the layup and taken by Flatbush.
Yeah, and that's not what you want if you're Ramaz either.
Levy taking it in. Can't get it to fall. Offensive rebound. Kamaji hits the second chance opportunity.
And the way Levy took that layup, took it to the side, which forced Kushner that way. which left the paint wide open for Flatbush to come in, grab that offensive board. So great job by Flatbush to identify that and really attack the glass and make Ramaz pay for the second chance points.
That is shocking. Eli Moadeb, 0 points, and you have Louis Franco with, I think he already has 11 now.
Yeah, and that's the great job with this Flatbush team that, obviously Moadeb is their main guy that they look to, but they're so deep. They have so many guys that, can step up and can jump in and contribute, right? Even if it's not offensively. I'm watching when they're on the defensive end, every single guy is glued to his man. There's not an ounce of space for any of the 5 guys on the court, and it's just a great job, to how well coached they are by Coach Nigro, and just in general to, how good players they are and how intense they take the game.
So how do you want to see Ramaz try and get some offense going? Because they're trying to drive downhill, just not working at all, and they haven't really taken that many outside shots. How should they go about that? Yeah,
I think they want to try to work, Poppers likes to use the motion offense, and they're going to try to, work some back screens, work some cuts, and try to, create space. That's going to be the key for them.
And a errant travel there. That just can't happen.
You see over there, he picks up his dribble towards the corner, and now he's stuck. He has his man trying to come over and help him, but, they're not giving any space, and you can't just pick up your dribble in the corner.
Suleiman dribbling the ball here. Haven't said his name too much. And it's a tough take inside. Emmanuel Kushner, the 6'4 center, blocked that one. And a foul called there as Ash was in trouble. Will be Charlie Kaplan inbounded here for the Rams. 38.3 seconds to go in the opening quarter. That has been mostly Flatbush so far. Kaplan gives it inside to Kushner. Trying to use his body. Emmanuel Kushner hits the layup.
Yeah, that's more of what you're looking for if you're Flatbush. Identify the advantage, and he was able to work his way to get an open shot.
South of 15 seconds remaining. 15-11, Flatbush on top. And Suleiman gets fouled. They're going to call that going up. And we saw in the varsity championship game, first of all, a lot of great basketball here, Yeshiva League. We have the varsity championship and overtime thriller. Sarachek is starting next Thursday. And now this game, good time to be a Yeshiva League basketball fan, but we saw A.L. Kinderler, the star for TABC. He kind of started out cold, missed some of his shots, looking for Kushner to but then he kind of turned it on late, looking for Kushner to have a similar run here.
Yeah, that's what Ramaz is going to need. They're only down 5, maybe 6, depending on the free throw. Make it 5. 5 seconds to go here.
Kaplan, 2 seconds, and Ramaz, oblivious to the game clock, does not get a shot off. Sloppy start for the Rams.
Yeah. So with that being said, but they're they've had a bit of a sloppy start, but they're only down 5, which I think if you ask Poppers the way that the game has gone, that to be only down 5 at the end of the first quarter, I think he would take it. But now it's going to be on Ramaz to respond to the way Flatbush has been playing. They're going to have to create space on offense. Flatbush is deleting all the space. They're sticking to the man like glue. You're going to have to set some screens, whether that's on ball or off ball. Coach Poppers is probably going to prefer some off-ball screens, but even on-ball screens, they're going to have to identify that. And if you're Flatbush, they haven't been playing the perfect game per se. Defensively, there are some things that they want to fix up, and offensively, I don't know if they're exactly playing their game, but at the end of the day, it's working. They're up 5, but I think you just want to iron out those little pieces that aren't working for them, and, instead of being up 5 at the half, maybe be up 10 or up 15 at the half. Definitely extend that lead going forward and maybe play a little bit more in transition. Their press hasn't really, before half court, their press hasn't really been giving Ramaz too many issues. Maybe identify that as an area where you can, force some turnovers in the backcourt.
At the end of the first quarter, we saw Jake Anzarut check in for Flatbush, the brother of Alan Anzarut, Flatbush shooting guard on the varsity team. So many siblings, like I said earlier. We have Morris Haddon, I believe Ricky Haddon's brother, and on the Ramaz side, Segura. We have Evan Burkhoff's brother. Just so many siblings. It's crazy. And a turnover there to start the quarter, for Flatbush. And Ash slows down the pace. And a contested pass inside to Kushner, but he reels it in. David Kamaji guarding Kushner has done an excellent job so far. Hiltzik gets blocked from 3. And Franco catches the rebound. Here's Kasem going in. Will kick it back out. Kamaji, another bucket for David Kamaji.
And that's a great job by Kamaji. If I'm Kushner, I want Kushner to step up more in that, not be as passive, especially with Kamaji with his back to the basket. I want him to be all over him, you know, force him to go around you or under.
I feel that, I don't know about you, Yosef, that Kushner's being a little lazy on the defensive side, and Ash just takes it all the way in.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much of a laziness, you know, per se, but I definitely want to see him be more, you know, a little bit more active, I guess.
Just a step late to a lot of things, and not the start you want. And Flatbush again gets to the basket, but Levy, tough bounce there. Here's Ramaz running downhill. Ash, another layup. He wanted the and one, was not granted.
And that was an excellent take from Ash. Able to drive down the lane, you know, maybe draw some contact, maybe not. But either way, it was a great drive and a great finish.
So Ramaz off to a hotter start in the second quarter. Just about 2 minutes in, they cut the Flatbush lead to 3. Here's Franco for 3. And an offensive rebound by Flatbush. Suleiman off the screen of Levy, pulls up. And again, Flatbush dominating the boards. Levy, no good. And then fouls Kushner.
And I think Kushner finally said enough is enough. You know, too many offensive rebounds for Flatbush. Goes up, really aggressive, grabs the ball, makes sure he comes down with it hard, and ends up drawing the foul.
Eli Mohadeb and Richard Carey back into the game for Flatbush. Mohadeb, 0 points so far. But again, we've had people step up for Flatbush. Kamaji doing a great job and Franco doing a great job. And that's good for Flatbush because the whole year they've really been relying on Mohadeb, but it's good to get some other names involved. Ash falls down. Richard Carey, way too strong on the layup, but gets the foul called.
Yeah, and that's a good call. That's a good call as we saw Charlie Kaplan kind of coming in from the back, as you'll see on the replay.
Here's Richard Carey, a line drive free throw. That irons out. And some more subs for the first time tonight. As mentioned earlier, Asher Burkhoff, brother of Evan Burkhoff, in for Ramaz. And then Michael Suleiman back in for Flatbush. A lot of subbing on the Flatbush side. In, out, in, out.
And that's the way that they play. You know, they almost want to do hockey shifts. You know, you're on for 2 minutes, you're off for a couple minutes. Just because, you know, you see them, they're always in the backcourt, you know, playing aggressive, playing up-tempo. And it tires you out. But the way that they have, you know, the way that their roster is constructed, they have so many guys that they're able to make those rotations to keep their guys fresh.
Here's Hiltzig with the ball. Gets it back. Just north of 5 minutes to go in the first half. Kushner thinking about what to do. Ramaz, oh, that's a travel. Too many mistakes like that on offense for Ramaz. Just they traveled, they slipped on the play before, and just a lot of sloppy turnovers. Too many of those mistakes. Got to cut them out. Mohadeb across the timeline. Corner three, Suleiman. It's good! Michael Suleiman from 3.
And that was a good job by Suleiman slipping the defense, and that quick release on the catch and shoot didn't even allow anyone to come up to get him.
I was watching some film on Flatbush, and I saw him a lot hit those corner threes, and there he was. That was his first of the night. That's off Kushner, Flatbush ball.
Yeah, probably could have been called for an over the back there, but either way, it's going to be on Flatbush. And if you're Ramaz, especially off the deep 3, I want more guys crashing the glass to try to get that rebound.
Here's Mohadeb. What a take! Eli Mohadeb just split right through the defense.
And like we've said, he's been a little bit quiet to start, but he was able to identify the lane, take it, and go. And that's, you know, and that could be a key, you know, especially they caught Kushner on the other side of the paint. If he can attack before Kushner can come over and help, that'll be huge for Flatbush.
That's a bad pass there, but Kaplan, like the attempt to get it back after the errant pass, not able to. And here's Flatbush. Look out, and a foul called there by Kaplan.
Yeah, just a little bit careless from Kaplan. You know, got to be more careful coming down. It was a good job from Flatbush to, you know, kind of stop and make sure to draw the foul. But Kaplan's got to be more careful with where he is on the court.
Here's Mohadab at the top of the key. Kicks it out to the corner. Suleiman, floater. And as you said, the sixth defender.
Yeah, the infamous sixth defender at the Max Stern Athletic Center strikes again. This time in the favor of Flatbush. We saw it before for Ramaz, so I guess now it's even.
So talking about something about the Max Stern Athletic Center, a positive. I really like how they have the possession light up. Just makes it clear. I love it. You know, without that, you're like, oh, whose ball? What is it? But that's a plus. Segura had an open three, driving the lane. And that bounces out. Kaplan, too strong on the putback. Kushner gets blocked from behind, and it goes to carry. And here's Moadeb just going right through the defense again. Lost the ball. Suleiman for three. Can't cash it in this time. We're seeing Flatbush get a lot more open looks from three the last few minutes. So a little trade-off there for Ramaz. They let Flatbush get inside a lot with Kamaji, and now they're giving them a little bit more open threes. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the game. And here's Kushner. Hasn't really been trying to post up too much, but will try to do it now. Spins, and that's just too easy.
And that's the Kushner that Ramaz is looking for, that Ramaz needs to see for the rest of this game. You know, he was there, he was active, he realized he had the space to you know, work his magic, and he was able to create a nice opportunity for himself.
Here's Mohadeb, pulls up, Eli Mohadeb. Here balls the shot, Franco for three. And he, after hitting one to start, has missed two in a row. Looked like a little bit of a walk, was not called. At the 2-minute warning, 24-17 football score. Flatbush up by a touchdown. Moadeb, another pull-up, another miss.
And you can really see now the way that Ramaz has adjusted. They're really crowding the paint. Anytime the ball gets even within the three-point line, you automatically have three guys for Ramaz just jumping in there, not allowing any open opportunities. Flatbush is going to have to earn everything from here forward, or they're going to have to start hitting their threes.
That pass tipped away, stays with Ash. Ed Ash looked like 6 steps there. Franco, another three. And he has really cooled down since his hot start. And here's Jared Miller. Segura for three. Off to the left. And that will stay with Ramaz. And as Jake Anzaru did in the first quarter, he will do that again here, checking into the game with just about a minute to go, and Flatbush takes the timeout. Interesting timeout, considering they've been playing pretty consistently and playing pretty well and up 7.
Yeah, but I think what Coach Niger is going to talk over with his guys is, first of all, discipline in the last minute 14, right? You're up 7. You want to go into the locker room up at least 7 at this point, right? You want to even maybe stretch it to 10. You know, definitely extra comfortable with a double-digit lead in the locker room. And especially to, you know, kind of just calm the guys on defense. You know, I like the methodology of calling timeouts when you're on defense, just to be able to talk it over with the guys, get them settled, and make sure they're properly locked in to defend. You know, he's sure that Coach Poppers has some kind of out-of-bounds play that he has. He wants to make sure that his guys are ready to counter that.
Right,
it's also that, you know, that use it or lose it timeout at the end of the first half. May as well use it, and this is a pretty good opportunity to do so.
So we said earlier about shot clock. Do you think it'll ever come to the JV level? Because I think it should.
Yeah, I think at some point. I think they were obviously always going to try it first on the varsity level, but I would assume at some point it's going to come to JV. We've seen it definitely improve the game at varsity this year. You know, there was a lot of opposition going in, but it's proven to be a really positive introduction into the game. So I'd imagine, you know, whether, I don't think it'll be like, you know, next year or anything like that, but, you know, within the next couple years, I would imagine that we're going to get a shot clock in JV too.
And especially from watching a lot of varsity games, then when you watch a JV game, you're like, oh, this is a little slower. Suleiman for three, on the money. Michael Suleiman, his second triple of the game.
And if you're Ramaz, that was just not great rotations. You know, you got to make sure that you're over there on that cross-court pass. Yeah, just way too much space. If you're Ramaz, especially the way Suleiman's been shooting today, you can't give him all that opportunity.
And Miller looking for a kick out. Finally does.
I wonder if you're Ramaz, if you try to hold for one here, or you kind of just play the game the way it is.
Kushner does not hold for one. Draws the foul going up. So let's see how Ramaz can do shooting free throws. Again, like we said earlier, that was a huge weakness for them in the semis. They started 1 for 2. I believe it was Miller shooting the free throws. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And so here's Kushner. A rough first shot.
Yeah, he'll try to improve it on the second one. And, you know, offensively, I would have liked to see him maybe, you know, pass out the ball more, especially with only 19 seconds on the clock. You know, instead of maybe putting that up, obviously he was able to draw the foul, but maybe try to work for a better opportunity. You have 20 seconds now.
And a really ugly trip to the line for Kushner.
Yeah, now even though he, you know, even with the miss, you know, had he hit that even, you get 1 point, but now you're giving Flatbush the ball back with 20 seconds. I would rather try to work for an open opportunity somewhere else on the court. You have 20 seconds to find something, you know, probably could have found a better shot.
And here's Moadeb with 7 seconds. It's to Kamaji now, and he'll draw the foul. We saw at the beginning of the game, you said earlier to me before we got on air that Flatbush likes to press up a lot on defense, and we'll see how the rest calling them. They'll get a lot of fouls, and we didn't really have much fouls at the beginning of the game, but now here, a lot of shooting fouls as of late.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's not that the refs are nickeling and diming anything. I mean, you know, Kushner wound up overcommitting to his left. You know, he's basically forced to, you know, kick out his leg with the right. And ultimately, when he crashed back down, made way too much contact. You know, it was a good call by the officials, but you got to play a cleaner game in the second half if you're Ramaz. You know, now it's going to, you know, almost guaranteed to be double digits headed into the locker room. It's obviously not something you want to see. But they definitely have a hill to climb, you know, an upward hill to climb. You know, down 11, you know, potentially with the opportunity to score, but, you know, likely down double digits headed into the locker room.
Kamaji hits the second free throw, so that makes it an 11-point Flatbush lead. 2 seconds to go. It will be Miller to inbound it. It's off to Ash, and Ash from half court. Pretty close. And so we will be back in 8 minutes for the second half.
Okay. Yo, Eitan, are you sure you're on commercial?
Story with French fries.
Pools of glass utensils.
What's the story with going to a non-kosher sushi restaurant?
I use a dairy blender to make a parve cake to serve at a meat meal.
story with French fries?
Bowls of glass utensils.
What's the story with going to non-kosher sushi
I
restaurant?
use a dairy blender to make a parve cake to serve at a meat meal.
welcome back into the Max Stern Athletic Center, where at halftime, Flatbush is up 28-17 over Ramaz. We're going to send it down to Dovid Samson, who's standing by with Coach Nigro for Flatbush. And thank you, Dovid, for that. In the meantime, Dovid is now going to try to catch Coach Poppers for Ramaz, try to hear his thoughts. And now we're going to send it back down to Dovid, who is standing. Never mind. Coach Poppers is not available for comment, which means that we're going to keep it here.
From Max Live to coaching Ramaz JV. And Ramaz, they have like a kind of a factory of coaches going. They have Scott Ferguson, one of, if not the best varsity coach. They had Ellie Grunberg, who's a great JV coach. He is now coaching JEC varsity basketball, and now they have Akiva Poppers, who's done a great job for them. And then they have Ari Wittges, the best athletic director in the Yeshiva League.
Yeah, it's a great overall athletic program that they have at Ramaz. Probably one of the better ones within the Yeshiva League. Just the way that they coach their guys and they have everything set up. And, it's a testament to them. They obviously, find themselves here, and it's for a reason. The way they set up their infrastructure, and obviously, credit to the players as well. Obviously, they're the ones that are on the court doing the work, but you got to sometimes credit the man behind the man. So shout out to Ramaz for the program they've built, and also Flatbush, as well. The way they've been in here, and now they're going to be in the playing game at YU, which we may touch on a little bit later. Wednesday night back here at the Max Stern Athletic Center to open Sarachek versus Maggie David. And obviously they were in the championship versus Maggie David last season. So just the incredible program that Flatbush has built up as well definitely deserves a shout out.
That was also a great varsity championship game. 2 great varsity championship games in a row. Hopefully this JV game can catch on. So the 5 that are in for Ramaz to begin the half is Ralph Segura, Jared Miller, Ed Ash, Noah Hiltzik, and Emmanuel Kushner, the starting 5. And for Flatbush, it's Abe Kassib, Eli Moadeb, Charlie Levy, David Kamaji, and Michael Suleiman, their starting 5. And the half begins with Emmanuel Kushner banking it in.
And that's a great job from Ramaz. Beautiful ball movement. They're able to get the pass over David Kamaji and just get it home with Emmanuel Kushner, who's hoping to have a little bit of a better second half than he did in the first half.
Suleiman pulls up, and he gets fouled. Look at this. 20 seconds into the half, we already see subs for Flatbush.
And that's just how they roll. Sometimes it's a offense-defense kind of thing. Sometimes maybe a coach didn't like something, want to see something you liked. But either way, going to make that quick substitution, taking Kassib out.
I was a little surprised we didn't see Frank go in to start the half after the great first half he had, but 20 seconds too late. It's all good. So
what they say, never wrong, just early.
I've never heard that quote before. And it goes to Ash, setting up the offense. Ed Ash looking for somewhere to go. And now gets the ball back. Ash gets fouled. He was just dribbling for 30 seconds, around and around.
Yeah, a lot of dribbling from Ed Ash. Ultimately was able to, work his way into drawing a foul. I don't know if he ever, fully meant to put that up per se, but able to draw a foul, earn 2 free throws. But as we've seen, in particular from Ramaz, but even from both teams, that, the free throw line can sometimes be a struggle.
1 for 5 thus far. The Rams shooting free throws, make it 2 for 6. As Ed Ash cashes in the second one. They're free points. You just gotta hit them. It's called free throws for a reason. Moadeb loses control, and it's scooped up by Ash.
And that's sometimes one of the consequences of playing as fast as he does. Maybe played a little bit too fast for himself even on that one, losing possession.
Here's Ash just dribbling it again. Segura being pressed up by Suleiman. Kushner gonna try and post up again. He is so casual when he's just thinking about going up, like just standing still, straight up tall. Ed Ash, what a strong take inside.
And that was a great take from Ash. I initially liked, when they were, doing back screen, setting up Kushner inside, but then the offense almost froze up. And I think Ed Ash decided, enough is enough, took it to the basket, and did a great layup.
Ed Ash had 4 points in the first half and already has 3 so far in the second. And the other points for Ramaz, Hiltzik had 6, Kushner had 4. That will stay with Ramaz, tipped out of bounds by Richard Carey. And for Flatbush, David Kamaji had 9, Michael Suleiman had 7, and Louis Franco had 5.
Yeah, either way, well balanced for both teams. Not one player being too dominant on either end. I think both coaches like to see, their teams spread the ball out a little bit, not have to rely on one guy.
Here's Ash, floater, and Ash on fire to start the second half. 5 points already.
Yeah, it was a little over-aggressive on that play by Carey, who ultimately fell down. Ash took the wide-open lane that he had, and strong finish. Continued his magnificent run in the second half.
Good pass by Mohadeb. Kamaji gets blocked from behind. Here's Segura pushing the pace. Reverse layup, just a little too strong.
Maybe got a little too fancy on that reverse. I would have liked to see him just try to go regular, try to get that shot in.
Number 2 on number 2, Jared Miller on Eli Mohadeb. Mohadeb gets right by him. What a block by Noah Hiltzik.
Yeah, and we've seen Ramaz just a lot more aware, a lot more active, here in the second half defensively. That it's not just, oh, he's not my guy, he's not my problem, but everyone kind of crashing the ball, everyone making sure that, the lane is not open business for Flatbush, kind of like it was in the first half.
And here is Kamaji, or Franco rather, and another made shot for Louis Franco.
That's a tough take from Franco, but that just shows you the talent that he has. He's able to just turn around, put it up with a hand in his face, and nail the shot.
So Flatbush extends their lead back up to 7. Ash at the foul line, kicks it out to Segura. Ash cutting the lane, and another foul that will send Ed Ash back to the line.
Yeah, and as we see on the replay, he does a great job to go in and then draws the foul. That's going to be on Abe Kassab. He tried to argue straight up, but you can kind of see, tried to grab around. And Ash is going to go to the line for 2. And hits the first one, which is a great sign for Ramaz.
Ed Ash also a lot smoother of a shooting form than we've seen with some of the other Ramaz players.
It's all about the fundies.
And Kushner grabs the rebound. And gets the ball back. Almost taken away by Suleiman. It stays with Ramaz. Behind the back move for Ed Ash.
And Flatbush now back into their 2-3 defense. We've seen them kind of alternate between a man-to-man and a 2-3. I guess now trying out the 2-3, especially with Ramaz's offensive prowess here in the second half.
Ed Ash, a little bit of a wild shot there.
And maybe a bit of a heat check for him.
Mohadeb kicks it out on the baseline. That jumper won't fall. Kamaji couldn't cash that one in. Hiltzik takes it in. What a strong finish by Noah Hiltzik. Just went right through 2 guys much bigger than him.
Yeah, and we've seen great fundamental basketball here from Ramaz. If I'm Coach Nigro for Flatbush, I may consider a timeout, especially with the run Ramaz is on. Flatbush maybe looks a little bit out of it, especially defensively. They may not be working as hard. You want to make sure that they're all set.
Suleiman. That 3 falls off the mark. Hiltzik, floater. It's a 2-point game. What a run by Ramaz. 31-29. Also in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, and Coach Nigro, as always, a bit animated on the sidelines. But I'm curious if there's a certain point, especially with all the blocked shots and the transitions from Ramaz, that he takes a timeout just to resettle his man.
Hiltzik for the lead. That would have had the Ramaz faithful getting real loud. And a good pass there. Kasib can't lay it in. Like to see Ramaz, slow it down here a little bit, which they do.
And as we see, they're getting into some set. Coach Popper's calling from the sideline. Let's see what they can do here.
And Ash getting pressed up, but kicks it out to Segura.
And a great job by Flatbush. Ramaz has been trying to set screens, but Flatbush has done a great job either going through them, over them, under them, not letting Ramaz's attempted offense get in their way.
Here's Ash, makes a move, and that won't go. Moadeb back the other way. Good ball movement inside for the Falcons. And Kamaji binks it in.
And that's much more of what you want to see from Flatbush. They're much more of a full court team as opposed to a half court team. The way they were able to go in transition, find the open man, and get the easy layup is a good job. But Coach Popper's going to call a timeout to settle his guys. But you see Assistant Coach Schaff, just kind of happy at the run that they've been on so far.
So we've seen Ramaz, just their offense has exploded recently, especially getting in. How do you want to see Flatbush try and contain that?
Yeah, so I think it's just going to be like, we saw in that last possession, really fighting through screens, kind of staying with their guys. And then, on the drive, maybe try to crash a little bit more. The shots that Ramaz has been taking haven't exactly been the highest quality shots. We've seen Ash go to the line multiple times off of, what may have been, questionable layups or pull-ups or things like that. So just, play a little bit more clean. Don't give Ramaz those free chances. And then don't let them get downhill. Try to keep them on the perimeter. And force them to beat you by shooting. Don't let them beat you in the middle. And then if they do miss, you got to box out Kushner and really everyone to grab the rebound and make sure they don't get another opportunity. Because if they do, you got to do everything all over again.
And credit to Flatbush for really stopping this. But Ramaz has not had really any looks from three throughout the game, and let alone in this quarter. I think Hiltzik had hit 2 threes in the first half. Great shooter, but we haven't Kaplan, who came in off the bench. We didn't see him shoot any threes. Ed Ash shoots a little bit of threes, nothing there, and they're good shooters too. So good job by Flatbush containing them. Really doing a good job on defense, all things considered, because Kushner hasn't even had his best offensive performance.
Yep, they've been able to rely on guys like Ed Ash to kind of get them through when they're having their tough stretches. And, we saw a tough 3 from Hiltzik before.
Ash zigs and zags. And that's now back to a 2-point game. Ed Ash doing a really nice job.
Yeah, that's a tough take from Ash. Great job from him. But if you're a Flatbush, I want to see someone come in and help, especially when he's going full head of steam.
Franco. And he gets the shot to bounce back. What a response.
Yeah, it seems that every time Ramaz maybe pokes their head out, Franco's there to respond.
I mean, he's had a ton of points, and like you just said, I feel like all of them have been right after a Ramaz basket. Oh, good no-look pass by Ash. And Kaplan has it taken away from him. Flatbush wide open down low. Carey gets blocked by Kushner. Wow.
And that's what we wanted to see from Kushner in the first half. He kind of comes out of nowhere, makes the block, and he kind of owns it. Yeah, this is mine. This is what I'm doing. And he seems much more bought in this half, much more aware, and much more just into it. Maybe it was the nerves in the beginning, but now we really see Ramaz fully bought in and fully set, and that's what's kind of sparked their comeback here in this third quarter.
Looks like Flatbush will hold it for one. Eli Mohadeb is in control. And an illegal screen called there on Louis Franco. So now Ramaz will have an opportunity to hold it for one and to try and cut it to a one-possession game.
Yeah, and that's not the screen you're looking for from Franco, especially with the size advantage over Miller. You just want to see him get set first, especially everyone knows it's coming anyway.
Ash with the ball, 2 seconds left. Kushner at the buzzer, and he can't bank it in. So that will end 3 quarters, and we'll stay right here. So let's get some Sarachek debut going. So I know you did a preview. Who do you have winning it all? Let's start with that.
I don't know yet. It's a really packed tournament. obviously, if you're talking about title favorites, you have to start with Eula, the #1 seed, defending champions. And, they really beat you from all over the place. It's not necessarily one particular guy or one particular thing that they like to do. Obviously we know Alex Gabai, the, reigning Sarachek MVP, and the way he was just able to take over in that overtime against Mag and David last year. But they got a bunch of guys. Yoni Hollander's going to be back. He's an excellent three-point shooter. Jalen Azrael's got incredible athleticism. So, between those guys, it's not just one guy that kind of beats you. And they're very strong on both ends of the floor. They're definitely a strong option.
That's what I see with Eula compared to Shalhevet. Shalhevet, you have more of a one-man show with Bertrand, and Eula just a lot more of a well-rounded team.
Yeah, but Shalhevet in their own right. They're a very excellent team. It's not just Bertrand. Obviously, he's incredible, and he can basically score from anywhere, and every team that's playing them is going to have to watch him. But, they got guys like Jacobson. They got guys like Lieberman. They got ancillary pieces to Bertrand that, if he's having a little bit of an off, couple possessions, that they have someone else that they can turn to, for those buckets. And those guys are going to be key, working to play off each other to try to get to the championship.
Sarachek starts Wednesday night, and I really like how they have the play-in now. Well, we have Flatbush varsity playing Mag and David, and Moadeb gets fouled. But, again, I just really like it. It just, it kind of like previews the whole tournament. One intense game, then you have like the Thursday, which the games can be a little hit or miss. So that's what I really love it.
Yeah, it was a little bit controversial when it was first announced, but I think after the DRS first game last year, which, by the way, shout out to the committee, we're getting a repeat of that in the first round.
Frisch, it's a 14-3 game, but Frisch has played everybody close this year, so that's going to be a really good game. Yes. I believe they won by 3.
Something in that range, 3 to 5.
A low-scoring game, if I remember, too.
Yeah.
At the greenhouse. You're on the call for that primetime game?
Ritz Hashem looking forward.
That should be a good one. That's the last game of the day. So back to this game now. We're underway with the fourth quarter, and Franco can't complete the steal. And so they sub 30 seconds into the third quarter, and they do that again in the fourth quarter. Why not?
Yeah, I guess, always keeping the other team on their toes. You think you're going to get a set at the beginning of a quarter. Maybe, the coach let it ride out for a minute or two, and all of a sudden you get a switch up already.
Segura kicks it out to Ash. Here's Segura, 4-3. Off the front rim. And the rebound goes to the Falcons. Levy going. Just misses an open layup. And now here's Ash. Doesn't have numbers, takes it anyway. And a little overzealous there, just went through 4 people. A foul called on, who'd they get that on? Looks like Miller.
I'm not sure if they know who they got it on.
That's a good point.
I think they put Miller up on the board, so I believe that's who they're going to get for that foul. It's only his second. Neither team in too much foul trouble today, so hopefully that's not an issue going forward.
Kind of the opposite of what happened in the varsity championship game. I mean, literally 3 out of 5 of TABC starters were out in overtime. Morgan, Kinderlayer, and Kaiser all fouled out.
Yeah, those are their big 3. Of their big 3, at least. So
hard to win a game when that happens.
Yeah.
Here's Ash, the point guard for this Ramaz team. He's been controlling the tempo for them the whole game. And with 6 minutes left in the championship game, it'll rely on him. He wanted a foul there. Was not granted. Here's Moadeb. Another good pass by Moadeb. And Kamaji right there for the bucket.
And that's once again another great job by Flatbush, just burning this Ramaz defense in the full court, not letting them get set in the half court. And Flatbush is going to keep trying to do that throughout the game. Trying to keep, extending the court, trying to get Ramaz caught in the backcourt.
Ticky-tacky foul there on Franco. And we all know how Eli Moadeb is regarded as a great scorer. He is also, as demonstrated today, a just amazing facilitator. True point guard, just doing just making great passes inside, and another one there to Kamaji.
Yeah, and that's part of what great scorers do, is great scorers, can identify when they're being, overguarded per se, and are able to throw to their open teammates. He's seen that when he drives the court, everyone from Ramaz kind of comes over, and he's able to find his open man, under the hoop very often by himself.
And it goes to Hiltzik. Been a pretty quiet game for Hiltzik after the 2 threes to start. And a flop and a half. Not called. And Miller hits the layup. It's okay trying to draw the charge, but that's not fooling anybody. And here is Flatbush taking it in. Kamaji, another layup.
Kamaji maybe earning a little bit of, earning a little bit of the street cred back after the attempted charge on the defensive end. But he's had a tough task trying to deal with Kushner all day. He's been getting banged around a little bit. Maybe try to get some leeway for himself. And Levy's going to argue he was straight up, but he wasn't. He tried to run straight through Ed Ash over there, and Ed Ash deserves those 2 free throws.
Another example, though, of Ash kind of taking a not the best look and getting rewarded with the foul.
But that's what smart players do. They're able to identify when their man is out of position and able to draw the foul. But now it's going to be on Ash not just to draw the fouls and to get to the line, but to actually hit those shots.
Moadeb back in for Flatbush. So Ash missed the first off the rim. Second one coming to cut it to a 5-point game. He drills it in. 39-34. 5 minutes to go in the MYHSAL JV Championship game. Flatbush has controlled for most of this game. Ramaz has made some runs. Haven't quite come even. Let's see if they have another late run in them. Here's Moadeb being guarded by Ash. Those 2 point guards have been going at it the whole game. And fight for the ball. That will stay with Ramaz. Suleiman with the ball. Michael Suleiman looking for somewhere to go. Poked out of bounds, will stay with Flatbush. This game's moved pretty quickly, a little slower down in the last minute or two, and Flatbush will take a timeout.
Yeah, it's interesting. Flatbush, they're a very high-paced team. They kind of like when the game moves. It doesn't get broken up. We mentioned pregame kind of that Flatbush is a team that likes to play in the 60s. Ramaz is more of a team that likes to play in the 40s. And, looking at the score, it looks like we'll probably end up somewhere in the middle, if anything, more towards the 40s than the 60s. But so far it's been, mostly Flatbush here in this one. Obviously, Ramaz is going to be looking to change that. But with 4:13 to go, especially, with the no shot clock in JV, it's a lot less time than you'd think. So, Ramaz definitely going to have to start shaping up, getting much stronger on the defensive end. And then offensively, they're really going to have to convert on their possessions, not just, put up some good shots and then, miss or, get to the foul line and hit 1 of 2. They're really going to have to start turning possessions into points.
So we spoke earlier about Flatbush coaches. I want to shout out Michael Gurock, who coached Flatbush varsity for about 2, 3, 4 years before like the Benny Cada days. And he now works at SAR. He's watching this game. Shout out to him. I like how we kind of just say teams' errors by players now. Even in the Yeshiva League you do it.
No, for sure. It's how to identify things.
Franco got Kushner to fly. Louis Franco continuing his hot game.
And that's a great move by Franco. And from Kushner, I just want him to stay home, especially out, so far away from the hoop. He's so tall, he's got those long arms. Just if he stays home, stays in front of his man, he doesn't give that open opportunity.
Kaplan in the corner. Charlie Kaplan driving baseline. Good pass, and Miller has the easy bucket.
That's a great drive from Kaplan and a good job to identify his man in the middle. And that's what we're talking about, turning possessions into points, and they actually did that pretty quickly. But, with the defensive laps on the other end, you're back where you started.
Franco can't nail the 3, and fight for the ball. That should have been off and was off at Ash. You can never please at Ash. He's always complaining for that extra call. Inbound play. And that ball's turned over. And Ash gonna try and take it all the way. He does, and the foul.
Yeah, what a take by Ed Ash. You know, he was kind of all by himself. Had some guys coming, you know, in the end, but just decides to take his man head on. You know, even going against the bigger, I believe that was Kamaji. You know, just try to takes him, you know, a little bit of shake and bake action, and now the opportunity to cut the lead to 2.
The Flatbush crowd making noise, trying to get into the head of Ed Ash, but he sinks in the free throw to make it a 2-point game.
And that's a huge free throw, especially with Ramaz. They haven't really been hitting their threes this game. You know, it's mostly been layups for them. So to get it within 2, you know, it's a real now one-possession game.
Here's Franco working inside, misses the pull-up, and a nice defensive rebound by Emmanuel Kushner. Here's Kaplan. Ramaz can tie the game or take the lead on this possession. Ash driving the lane. We're tied. Ed Ash does it again, 41-41.
And who else but Ed Ash for these Ramaz Rams? As now 2.5 to go. We got ourselves a tie ball game.
Adeb will slow down the play. Will slow down the pace. And this place now getting loud. Franco tried to kick it out. Tip off Ramaz.
Yeah, kind of got hacked a little bit on the way in, but I like the way Ramaz is adjusted, and it's really crashing every time someone goes full steam to the hoop. They're really crashing the basket, not giving him any open space.
Levy showing off the hops, catching the inbound. And here's Franco for the lead. And Flatbush can't corral the board. You said for Ramaz to slow it down. They will slow it down even more by calling a timeout. Good timeout there.
Yeah, you know, trying to deal with the Flatbush press. You know, want to calm things down. You're now under 2 minutes. You know, just get things resettled. Right, it's a tie game. You don't want to do anything crazy, anything extra, especially, you know, with the lack of a shot clock. You know, at this point, you know, we're talking about, you know, maybe even single hand the amount, you know, you can count the amount of possessions that are left in this one. So you want to make sure you capitalize on all of your possessions. As we see for Ramaz, Scott Ferguson, the varsity coach, maybe getting a little bit in the huddle. As Coach Poppers, you know, settles his guys on the other side. I'm sure Coach Nigro, you know, telling them, you know, play up, play aggressive, you know, force them to make a mistake, get the ball back, and then take advantage that end.
So the reason we're announcing this game is because the great Norman Jamal and Dovid Foreman couldn't make it today. Shout out to them, they both do a great job. Norman getting ready for baseball season, he's the Hillel coach. And Dovey had to coach with his Bergen Broncos today. Last minute decision, or last minute call up. So that's why we're here. And back to basketball. And Ash wisely slows it down. And Ash has really lighted it up here throughout the stretch. What can he do here? Kicks it out.
Yeah, you saw on that last touch. As Ash went up with it, couldn't get it, and Flatbush going to come down with the board. But you saw Muhammad kind of camping in the paint every time Ash had the ball. That's what Flatbush is going to try to do. They're not going to give him those open lanes. You can't afford to, you know, in a tie game with 1.5 to go.
Off the screen from Levy. Here's Suleiman for the lead. Both these teams, or Flatbush specifically, have gone cold shooting threes.
Yeah, and I think if you're Coach Poppers, obviously maybe that's a little bit too much space, but that's the shot you want Flatbush to take. They've been really cold from 3. Let them take the 3, but don't burn us inside where it's a much, much higher percentage look.
And that was a risky pass inside. No. And finally, Akiva Poppers gets the timeout called. I was going to mention earlier that I said earlier how I love the possession sign. I don't think we've even seen a jump ball today.
Yeah, no jump balls. Instead, we had a smart timeout. I think Charlie Kaplan was, you know, jumping up and down. I don't know if they, you know, credited Poppers with the timeout or Kaplan with the timeout, but either way, great high IQ basketball. You know, calling that timeout with, you know, the ball, the possession, you know, a little bit in jeopardy.
Under a minute to go, and we're all tied up. Can we get another overtime?
Oh, we might, but, you know, we're going to see the replay here, you know, of the, you know, and it was a good job by Kushner to get rid of it, but if you're Ramaz, this is not the time to be, you know, forcing the ball places per se, or, you know, throwing questionable passes. Every pass has got to be sharp, it's got to be crisp, it's got to be with a purpose. because you can't have Flatbush just, tip it and go to the other end like they love to do. Tip the bad pass, go to the end, and all of a sudden you're down 2 when, they feel in a very comfortable spot right now with the ball, 57.7 to go.
What do you want to see them do on offense here?
I want to see them try to create space in the middle. Obviously, anytime Ash has the ball, Flatbush is going to try to cover the paint. So I would say, try to create space for Ash. And if not, maybe Kushner comes open, maybe a little bit of drive from Kushner and then, another baseline bounce. Drive from Ash, a baseline bounce to Kushner. Maybe try to get some kind of shot close to the basket. I don't think working for a 3 here is what they want to do and what would work in their favor.
And here's Kaplan, thought about the 3. Instead, he's trying to work his way inside. And it goes back to Ash.
And that's a great job by Muad'Dib, just denying any space.
And a foul on the ground. 4 fouls for Flatbush. Got to be careful. Next one will send Ramaz to the line for 2. You want to see Ramaz hold it here?
Not necessarily. I think if you get an opening, you can take it. But I'm okay at this point holding for the last possession.
And another timeout for Ramaz. You only get 5 timeouts, and they're getting up there.
Yeah, but you know what they say, you can't take them to the grave. So,
That's true.
You got to use them or lose them at a certain point, and you definitely, the other alternative, you don't want to take a 5-second violation in this kind of situation. So good job by Ramaz identifying that, calling the timeout. I'm sure they're running low. The referee just came over to them, probably told them he has no more timeouts.
Yes, I think the ref made a signal to each other that they're out of timeouts.
But either way, a very smart timeout from Ramaz. You don't want to have a stupid mistake be the reason that your season is over.
Yeah, they seem to be a very high IQ there. High IQ team. You saw Kaplan he knows when to use his timeouts. High IQ team. So the Rams will inbound it under their basket.
And I just want to shout out Flatbush has been defending excellently. Right, Ramaz has basically had possession for the better part of the last 2 minutes, and they're just not getting any space, any looks, anything. Flatbush is really stuck to their principles. Good job by Coach Nigro with the adjustment, and he's really, as we see some kind of miscue from the referee, not miscue, miscommunication. There we go. Now we're back. And we've just seen Flatbush really lock down defensively and give Ramaz no space in any way.
Kaplan to inbound it. And a risky inbound play, but Ash recovers it. Wow. 20 seconds to go. Ash dribbling it around. Looks like they will hold it for 1. The Flatbush crowd trying to trick the Rams. 5 seconds to go. Hiltzik misses the layup. Levy. And did Flatbush get a timeout off? They did. Oh, he had an open layup there, just could not cash it in. And now Flatbush, let's see how much time they've put left on the clock. I would assume around a second, I think, is when they got the rebound.
Yeah, and Hiltzik obviously disappointed, but, in the best case scenario so they put 1.5 seconds back on the clock. I was going to say in the best case scenario, we'll get maybe, 3-4 seconds, and they got 1.5. But it's really just about locking in defensively, not fouling. They cannot afford a foul right now. Actually, they can, but not a shooting foul, obviously. And, try just letting it go to overtime. And then in overtime, you kind of play your game, things settle in more, with that added time on the clock. Both teams feel a little bit more secure to kind of open up a little bit. But if you're Ramaz, you just got to lock down now. Do not, let yourself get put on Sports Center with some kind of game-winning buzzer beater.
And as what allowed them to get advance here, don't foul them shooting up a half-court shot.
Yeah.
And there is no advancement in Yeshiva League basketball. The inbound will be on Flatbush's side of their court. So they'll have to go about 3/4 of the length.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a chunk from Muad'Dib probably.
They're going to throw it down, and that's intercepted. The shot is off. That was a lot closer than I would have ever thought. And so we are going to overtime. 3rd straight MYHSAL championship game in overtime. Of course, last year the Brooklyn battle, Flatbush Magan, this year's varsity championship game, and now we have the JV championship game in overtime.
Yeah, it just shows, some of the parity that's going on in the Yeshiva League right now. Obviously, you have certain teams, that may, be at the top or at the bottom, but within the top tier, all these teams so close to each other. And it's just a great job. We saw Flatbush kind of jump out in the first half, and then Ramaz has kind of, come back a little bit in the second half. But a great job to both sides, definitely playing their game. And even Flatbush, Ramaz, Coach Poppers told me, if we can keep this in the 40s, we should be fine. They went into, against DRS, they went into overtime 45-45. Now they're at 41-41. So, the pace, if anything, has been a little bit more in the favor of Ramaz, but obviously just been a really even match game from both sides.
Big story is that Flatbush got ice cold shooting outside the perimeter in the second half. They had their open looks. They had their open looks in the first half. They capitalized on most of them. Same looks in the second, and just couldn't hit them. And Emmanuel Kushner, the 6'4" center, he won the tip at the beginning of the game as easily as you could possibly win a tip.
Yeah, well, you can see in the middle. He's got a sizable height advantage.
I mean, he barely even has to jump to win the tip. It's insane. And so it goes to Ed Ash. 4 minutes in overtime, and fouls and stuff carry over, so the fouls do not reset.
Which means that every Flatbush foul in overtime is going to send Ramaz to the line. Like we saw right there, that's probably on the floor, but they're going to put that up. Ramaz with Flatbush now at 5 fouls. So, we saw, things maybe repeating themselves a little bit for Ramaz, in a similar situation against DRS. Every foul sends them to the line. They really struggled to kind of stand up to the pressure in that situation. But given a second opportunity, are they able to, counteract that and start hitting their shots?
Miller can't connect with the first free throw. Needs this one here to put Ramaz up one.
The other thing that free throws do is that if you make one and miss one, now all of a sudden we get odd numbers. So it's not that they're tied every time, although with those two misses, we're still tied at 41.
The trend continues for Ramaz, just can't buy a foul shot to go. So they come away empty on their first possession of overtime. Here's MYHSAL facilitating the offense.
Yeah, not a lot of movement from Flatbush. I want to see some of the other guys kind of get involved, try to move around, work their way through. Try to create open opportunities.
Grinko got stripped from behind. Ash running downhill. Hiltzik for the lead. It goes! Noah Hiltzik gives Ramaz the lead.
Maybe a little bit of redemption for Noah Hiltzik after missing that layup to end the regulation. Now puts his team up 3, and Flatbush has not been able to hit from 3.
Franco just rolls out, and that's off Miller. Oh, looked like it was off Miller, but it goes to Flatbush. Tough angle here.
Yeah, we couldn't see. I also thought it was off of Ramaz, but they're gonna call it off of Flatbush Ramaz ball. And when Franco put that up, I was convinced we were gonna get another one of those. Ramaz makes it up. Hits a shot. Franco responds.
Oh yeah, because Franco done it the whole game.
But was not meant to be that time. But they still got 2:38 to tie this game back up.
And Ramaz, the players collide. MYHSAL picks up the ball, going in, and it's now a 1-point game. We've seen a lot of overtimes that are kind of sluggish. Both teams take their time and not a lot of scoring. Not this overtime.
Yeah, MYHSAL wasting no time, taking it right to the basket. That's kind of his comfort zone.
Ash pulls up off the rim. Miller will go right back to the line.
Yeah, Miller maybe a little bit shaken up, but looks to be okay, as he's now going to have to, earn his 2 shots. As we saw the thing from Ash, and once again, just from Flatbush and Ramaz. Ramaz, great effort on the second. Great job by Miller to run in for the board, and Flatbush has got to do a better job containing that. Miller hits the shot, so now it's 45-43, but Flatbush, if you're losing in overtime with almost 2 minutes to go, you can't give the other team second chance opportunities.
Jared Miller at the line. Clutch goes 2 for 2, but he crossed the line. Oh, that can't happen. Ramaz started to finally hit a free throw, and then Miller was just on the line, so their lead is now just 2.
and that would have been huge, especially with Flatbush's inconsistencies from 3. But now even one of Muhadeb's layups or anything, any basket pretty much, will tie the game back up at 45.
Here's Franco with the ball. We'll give it out to Muhadeb. Eli Muhadeb pulls up, and that shot grazes the rim. Rebound secured by Ramaz.
And that's a great job by Miller. We've seen him everywhere to secure the rebound and then quickly get rid of it before he can get tied up for either a jump or a steal.
Ash, too strong, fight for the board. It goes to Kushner, and then taken away. Good foul there by Hiltzik.
And I think Flatbush is going to ask for a take foul. I don't know if the refs, I don't think are going to grant it, as we can see on the replay. Definitely a lot of space. Some guys from Ramaz, coming back. That's one of those that probably could have gone either way.
So that will allow Flatbush to slow down things here. Just over a minute remaining. Franco for the lead. Puts it in! Louis Franco puts Flatbush on top.
And that's a huge 3 from Louis Franco. We've seen it from him when Flatbush needs a bucket. He's the guy that they turn to, and now with Ramaz down 1, just under a minute to go. Let's see if they can work their magic.
Hiltzik off the back iron, and a jump ball called. It's Flatbush ball. Oh, Louis Franco has been clutch all night, responding to every single Ramaz bucket, and in the biggest moments of the game, he does again to put Flatbush on top, and a timeout taken by, I believe, the Falcons.
Yeah, that's a good timeout by Coach Nigro, just getting to talk it over with his guys, having them settle down. If you're Coach Poppers, you probably have to start fouling. I don't really foul right off the inbound, try to force a turnover. But this possession, you're going to have to start fouling with no shot clock. But for Coach Poppers, you were saying before how, the possession arrow, you love to see it. And, now it finally comes into play, maybe at the biggest moment of the game. Flatbush up 1. Now Flatbush is going to get the ball off the jump. And we'll see if Ramaz can force a mistake.
So what do you want to see in terms of when it's the right time for Ramaz to foul?
I would say I don't want them to get it clean over half court. But once it's clean over half court and things start to settle down, I wouldn't let Flatbush waste too much time. I definitely try. You're obviously pressing on the inbound, and just don't let them get over half court easily. You want to make it hard for them, even if they ultimately do. I would try to press, and then things kind of start to settle down. That's when you foul.
And Ramaz still has one more foul to give before they'll send Flatbush a trip to the line. And Ash will kind of just let Muhadeb cross the timeline. Risky pass there to Levy. Good ball movement by Flatbush. The second chance layup goes. David Kamaji. That extends the Falcons' lead to 3. 30 seconds to go.
And now if I'm Ramaz, I'm not necessarily forcing a 3, but I'm trying to get something up quickly. Because, they haven't been great on 3, but you just got to get some points at this point.
And Ed Ash misses the layup time, and then Ramaz fouled him, so they'll have one more foul to give.
And Coach Popper's going to call a timeout, talk it over with his guys, say, exactly what he wants to do, when he wants his guys to foul. At this point, I don't know if I'm fouling right away either. I think I would still wait, try to, pressure them as much as you can, and then eventually, once the ball gets over half court and things are a little bit more settled, you foul. But I'd probably say, anytime it gets to under, 10 to 8 seconds, depending on the scenario, at that point, you just don't have a choice. Especially the way this game has gone, I can't confidently say it's a one-possession game. With some of Ramaz, both teams, but especially, with Ramaz's inconsistencies from beyond the arc.
Been a big part of their season, but just not much today. Hiltzik, 3 triples for him, and I don't think they have any other 3s. I mean, like Kushner, he's not much of a three-point shooter, but he'll give you 1, 2, 3s, maybe a game. He'll miss most of them, but sometimes it'll fall. But just really relying on driving inside, and even when they were down 3, you saw Ed Ash trying to go downhill. So it will be Suleiman on the inbound, and he gets it into Levy. And Levy gets fouled, 14.5 to go. So Charlie Levy trying to make this a 2-possession game. He'll shoot 2. Here's the first shot coming. High arcing free throw that bounces out. And we've seen all types of shooting forms here today from the line, and that touched the sky. Nothing but net on the second one. And timeout, Flatbush. They lead by 4. So, what do you want to see here, Yosef, on offense for Ramaz?
Just a quick bucket, really anything that gets the ball in quickly. And then you have to play the fouling game again. Coach Nigro just telling his guys to calm down. Now's not the time you want to be fouling if you're Flatbush, I would imagine. Just because, stopping the clock, even though Ramaz hasn't been great from the line, you don't want to stop the clock and give those opportunities. If you're Flatbush at this point, the clock is your best friend. You just want to let things tick, maybe lock in on the inside. I'm okay to let them shoot a 3 because I can't trust that they're going to hit it. Obviously, you don't want to leave them wide open. But I would focus, Ash is probably going to try to come in, head of steam inside. I would, work to try to, prevent that, just don't give up easy points. That's really the key for Ramaz. Don't give up easy points, and if you're, for Flatbush, and if you're Ramaz, just try to get anything quickly is really the goal.
So it will be Jared Miller. That's not Jared Miller. That was Kaplan inbounding it. Here's Ash. Ed Ash. Just no defense by Flatbush. The clock's running. They can take their time. 3 seconds. Franco gets fouled with just about 2 seconds. Good job just letting the clock tick down. I don't know if he necessarily wanted to just let them go right through, but 1.7 to go.
Yeah, that's just very smart, high IQ play from Flatbush, letting the clock go, wasting time on the inbound. I'm sure that's something that Coach Nigro pointed out to them.
That's what we saw in the varsity game. Sammy Levine drained a 3, and DRS smartly just let it tick down. So here's Franco at the line. Money on the first. Louis Franco, the first player off the bench, has been, in my opinion, and probably most people's, the MVP of this game for Flatbush.
Definitely the Flatbush fans who were cheering MVP as he walked up to the line.
And so trying to hit this to ice the game. Louis Franco, have yourself a night. 1.7 to go. And they're letting it roll. Hiltzik, no good at the buzzer. And Flatbush is the JV champions. What a game we had today. Flatbush came out on top. Ramaz trying to get back into the game. They got it even, sent it to overtime. And then Flatbush behind Louis Franco took the lead in overtime and didn't look back. So who's your MVP of the game? Franco?
Yeah, probably. He was the guy, especially was able to turn it on early for these Flatbush Falcons. And then obviously late at the end, he had that clutch shot, and then the free throws that really iced the game. There are a lot of different ways you could go. I wouldn't say there was one player that openly dominated the game for Flatbush. It was really a team effort on their end. But if you have to give it to one guy, he's probably the guy I would lean towards.
And Eli Mohadeb, we saw him in a little bit of a different role today, not being the primary scorer for Flatbush, but he did a great job just facilitating the offense, and he had himself a really good game as well.
Yeah, and that's like what we said a little bit earlier in the game, where sometimes being a scorer is not necessarily about putting the ball in the bucket. It's about finding the best way for your team to do so. If you're being guarded or you see it's not your night, just try to set up your teammates for opportunities. And credit to Mohadeb because he just did an incredible job of, creating space and creating opportunities for his teammates. Today in particular it was Franco, but really just generally, creating chances for his team to put points on the board.
And a tough loss for Ramaz. They fall in the JV championship game like they did 2 years ago, but they'll be good next year, probably on the varsity level. I mean, most of their key players are sophomores. They'll have a good varsity team. Stanley Carey will be a senior next year, as well as Asaf Seinfeld. Stanley Carey had an unbelievable season. And for Flatbush, they're, again, a lot of just sophomores, but so their varsity will be very good. They're going to lose Ricky Haddad, but they have Aaron Romano on the varsity level, Joey Essis, and I forgot their other player's name, but they'll be very good on the varsity side too. They'll have Moa Dev, their point guard, next year.
And hopefully for Flatbush also, junior Sam Jamal, hopefully he can, stay healthy. He's struggled with health each of the last 2 years with injuries. Hopefully he can, kind of stay healthy and, be a key piece for them.
I thought he was a senior. I didn't even know that he's there another year. So they're going to be a very good team.
Yeah, to be honest, I think he's a senior as well. I just, in the notes, I think it was, it put in for the Sarachek maybe a little bit incorrectly. But.
And so speaking of Flatbush, again, Sarachek starts this Wednesday. The first game, Nagin against Flatbush. And then all day Thursday, Friday, and Sunday the semis, Monday the championship game. Should be a good one.
And I think we're going to send it down for the trophy presentation. And we'll hear from our beloved commissioner, as always, Seth Gordon.
Congratulations to the champion, Flatbush Falcons! Most valuable player, Louis Franco.
interview of Coach Danny Nagro, the head coach of the Flatbush Falcons. Now, obviously, you guys jump out to a lead in the first half. You go into the locker room up double digits. What are you telling your guys at the half?
So we've struggled all year in the third quarter, tremendously. We can never figure it out. And we struggled again in the third quarter. We've tried multiple things, changing defenses, personnel, staying in the gym, leaving the locker room. Nothing works. Third quarter is our nemesis. So we just try to survive the third quarter. And I told you at the half poppers we'd make an adjustment. I thought that we panicked a little bit in the traps, especially in the corner. We gave the ball up a little too quickly, and we tend to fall in love with the jump shot. Whereas we're telling them, try to post up, we had a mismatch with Franco. We fell in love with the three a little too much.
So now let's fast forward to overtime. Headed into overtime. So Ramaz made their comeback in the second half. Overtime almost gives you a fresh slate. What are you telling your guys, to focus in on? You were able to lock down really at the end of that fourth quarter. Ramaz had the ball for almost the entire last 2 minutes, and you didn't allow any points. What are you telling the guys going into overtime to kind of give them the kick to take it, to take that advantage?
What I told them, what they actually did, might be two different things. But all jokes aside, it's a matter of rebounds, winning the loose ball, and keeping Ash in front of you. I mean, the goal was to keep Ash in front, to keep Kushner out and away from the basket, and then to guard Hilton. Can we finish?
You're here with all your guys. What does it mean to you? How's the season gone? What does it mean to you to head coach all these guys and lead them to the championship? How have they done all season to help you get here?
So, I love these guys. These guys brought me out of retirement, and this championship is not about me. It's not about what I've done or not done. It's about the commitment from day one that these guys put in. Eli, you'll never ask me a question again. Coach, I have a question. Eli had the most questions of any basketball player in the history of basketball. I love these guys. Tremendous win. Be proud of yourselves and be proud of Flatbush. Thank you.
All right, awesome, Coach. Now I just have one more question. Obviously, your coaching style, we're watching you from here, and you're all over the court, running around really animated with the guys. We obviously hear you, very hoarse. What does it take from you to get that style, a coaching style, of just, all over the place?
3 kidney stones right now that have to be removed. Okay? Heart condition, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of resolve. It's really a grind at every level. College, high school, it doesn't matter. It's a day in and day out, and they earned it. They earned it against 3 tremendous teams. Ramaz, Frisch, and Ramaz. People sleep on this league. Basketball in this league is top quality. The coaches in this league are tremendous. This is a tremendous win for them.
All right, Coach. Thanks for the interview. Go celebrate with your guys. Meanwhile, we're just going to steal Louis for a second. You guys can hang around here. Bringing in the Chivalry MVP, Louis Franco. Louis, obviously, what does it mean, not just to win the championship, but MVP of his game? What did it take for you to get to the championship?
So it was a great, first off, I just want to thank all my teammates, my coaches, my parents, especially my dad. Rest in peace. Love you, man. Second, it was all of us. Every single practice, every single game, everyone put in the work every single day. And it shows. It obviously shows. Every single person on this team has a job.
So Now, you guys are getting to overtime. What does coach tell you guys in overtime, and how are you guys able to take that methodology and kind of come out on top, especially after Ramaz had that and one in the beginning, putting them up 3. How were you guys able to respond and really win, secure the championship?
Yeah, so our game plan going into overtime was really just, we had a couple things on our minds. And the most important one was to close out this game. Obviously, put down, but then we just stayed in it. No one put their heads down. We just kept going, ended up winning this game.
That's awesome. All right, we appreciate you taking the time, and congrats. Do you have any shout outs? Anyone have any shout outs you want to give?
Shout out to Rick Pitino.
Shout out my mom. Shout out Moshe Mark, best rabbi.
Shout out Rabbi Galpert.
Shout out Jacob Gang, my bro, Nisa.
Everyone wanted me to say this. My whole life is consistent, boys.
And that's Louis Franco, Yeshiva League JV MVP of the championship game. Oh, we got one more shout out.
Special shout out to Max Live, all the hard work during the YU season, both championship games. Shout out Max Live.
Appreciate that. And with that, we're going to finish up our broadcast here. We'd just like to thank Josh for coming on Max Live a little bit last minute. Big shout out to Norman, like we said. Big shout out to Dovid. Big shout out to both teams. Obviously, it was an overtime game. Big shout out to Ramaz. Great effort from them. Shout out to all our cameramen. Mr. Bluth over here, Mr. Traurig in the control room, Dovid Samson at halftime, and really all the Max Live staff that goes into this. And yeah, that'll do it from us here.
Yosef,
Final score.
It was a pleasure doing this game with you. Looking forward to hearing you in Sarachek. Sarachek, it's going to be fun this year, so looking forward to that.
Really looking forward, and Josh, a pleasure. So with that, final score, Flatbush 51, Ramaz 47. That's going to do it from us. Have a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for Sarachek coming up this week right here on Max Live.